These are the locutions given to Father Gobbi by the Blessed Virgin Mary. These are private revelations that I gathered up from the book The Marian Movement of Priests. These readings that I got are all surrounded by prophecies of Our Lady of Fatima foretold, the errors of Russia, the consecration of Russia, atheistic communism, Freemasonry and its impact on the Church. March 25th, 1984, the date that the Vatican says that John Paul II consecrated Russia to the Immaculate Heart. Before all I ask of it, of Pope John Paul II, the first of my beloved sons, who on the occasion of this feast performed the consecration in a solemn manner, after writing to the bishops of the world and inviting them to do so in union with him. Unfortunately, the invitation was not welcomed by all the bishops. Particular circumstances have not yet permitted the explicit consecration of Russia, which I have requested many times. As I've already told you, this consecration will be made to me when the bloody events are well on the way to actuality. I bless this courageous act of my Pope in his wish to entrust the world and all the nations to my Immaculate Heart. I receive it with love and gratitude, and because of it I promise to intervene, to shorten greatly the hours of purification, and to lessen the gravity of the trial. Thus I ask this consecration also, from all the bishops, from all the priests, from all religious, and from all the faithful. This is the hour in which the whole Church must assemble in the secure refuge of my Immaculate Heart. This is in Germany, September 8th, 1985. Look at your Heavenly Mother, who was born bright as the sun. What is it that is obscuring the beauty and the brightness of the Church? It is the smoke of the errors which Satan has caused to enter into it. These are becoming constantly more and more disseminated and are bringing very many souls to the loss of the faith. The cause of such a vast diffusion of errors, of this great apostasy, rests with unfaithful pastors. They remain silent when they should speak with courage, to condemn error, and to defend the truth. They do not intervene when they should be unmasking the rapacious wolves who, hidden beneath the clothing of lambs, have insinuated themselves into the flock of Christ. They are dumb dogs, who allow their flocks to be torn to pieces. You, on the other hand, must speak out with force and with courage, to condemn error, and to spread only the truth. The time of your public and courageous witness has come. The splendor of the Church is also darkened by the profound division which has entered into its interior and which is growing greater every day. And so you must bear witness to this unity, with a strong commitment of union with the Pope and with the bishops united to him. Do not follow those bishops who oppose the Pope. Make of yourselves courageous defenders of the Pope, and denounce openly those who are opposed to his magisterium, and who teach in a manner contrary to it. Look to your Heavenly Mother, who is born, terrible as an army in battle array. What is it that makes your strength ineffectual, and halts you with fear in the face of the great attack of my adversary? It is the tolerance of sin, which draws you away from the life of my Son Jesus. It is the great neglect of prayer, which gives you the very own strength. So then, be today courageous witnesses in fighting against sin. Through you, let the great gift which Jesus has made to you in the sacrament of reconciliation shine forth once again in the Church. Return to the practice of going often to confession, and pray more. Pray with me. Pray the Holy Rosary. Everything that my Pope has done in this place corresponds with the truth. You are close to the great chastisement, and so I say to you, entrust yourselves to me. And remember that the weapon to use in these terrible moments is that of the Holy Rosary. Then you will form my cohort which I am leading in these times to its greatest victory. Fatima, October 13th, 1985. Anniversary of the last apparition. From there where I appeared as the woman clothed with the sun, I am calling all of you to gather together about your heavenly leader. These are the times of the great battle between me and the powerful cohort, which is under the orders of the Red Dragon and the Black Beast. Marxist atheism and masonry are guiding this army, which has been mustered to lead all humanity to the denial of God and to rebellion against him. At its head is Lucifer himself, who is repeating today his act of defiance in placing himself against God, to make himself adored as God. With him are fighting all the demons who are, in these times, being poured out from hell upon the earth, in order to lead the greatest possible numbers of souls to perdition. United with them are all the souls of the damned, and of those who, in this life, are walking in rejection of God, whom they offend and blaspheme, as they walk along the road of egoism and hatred, of evil and impurity. They make their one and only aim of the quest for pleasure. They satisfy all their passions. They fight for the triumph of hatred, of evil, of impurity, of impiety. The cohort which I myself am leading is made up of the angels and saints of paradise, guided by Saint Michael, the archangel, who is the head of the heavenly militia. This is a great battle which is being waged above all at the level of spirits. On this earth my cohort is made up of all those who live by loving and glorifying God, according to the grace received in holy baptism, and who are walking along the sure road of perfect observance of the commandments of the Lord. They are humble, docile, little, and charitable. They flee from the snares of the demon, and from the easy seductions of pleasure. They journey along the way of love, of purity, and of holiness. This cohort of mine is made up of all my little children, who in every part of the world are answering me today with a yes, and are following me along the road which in these last years I have traced out for you. It is with my cohort that I am bringing on my victory in these times. It is with my cohort that I am building up each day the triumph of my Immaculate Heart. It is with my cohort that I am preparing the way along which the glorious reign of Jesus will come to you, and it will be a reign of love and of grace, of holiness, of justice, and of peace. From this place where I appeared, I repeat to you again today my motherly appeal. Join together all of you, as quickly as possible in this my cohort. The hour of the great battle has already arrived. Fight with the weapon of the Holy Rosary, and walk along the way of love for Jesus, of contempt for the world, and for yourselves, of humility, of charity, of simplicity, of purity. Then you will be ready to bear the great trials, which will soon begin for the Church and for humanity. From this blessed place which my Pope, and with my beloved ones and the children consecrated to me, I bless you all, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. This is in Milan, May 13th, 1987, anniversary of the first apparition at Fatima. Today you are calling to mind the 70 years since my first apparition in the poor Cova da Iria in Fatima, where I came from heaven to give you my message of conversion of salvation. Since that time, the succession of these years has been a continual confirmation of what I had foretold to you. The refusal to return to God through conversion has brought all humanity along the arid and cold road of hatred, of violence, of sin, of an ever-increasingly widespread impurity. Wars have continually succeeded, one upon another, and despite so many efforts, you have not succeeded in building peace. On the contrary, today as never before, the world is being more and more threatened with its very own destruction. There is an unwillingness to respond to my demand for prayer, which I had made to you then, especially with the frequent recitation of the Holy Rosary, to obtain the conversion of sinners and the salvation of many souls exposed to the grave danger of being eternally lost. Thus the night of sin has enveloped the world, and evil has spread everywhere like a terrible cancer. There is an unwillingness to recognize sin as an evil. On the contrary, it is openly justified and exalted as a good. People no longer go to confession. They live and die habitually in mortal sin. And every day, how many souls go to hell because there is no one to pray and sacrifice for their salvation. My request that Russia be consecrated to me by the Pope together with all the bishops has not been accepted, and thus she has spread her errors in every part of the world. You are living in a humanity which has built a new civilization, atheistic and anti-human. People no longer love one another. They no longer respect the life and the good of their neighbor. The flames of egoism and hatred are extinguishing those seeds of goodness which are still springing up in the hearts of men. The poor are being abandoned. The little ones are being ensnared and nourished with the poisoned food of scandal. The youth are being betrayed and led into precocious experiences of evil. Homes are being profaned and destroyed. How great is your desolation! How dense is the darkness which surrounds you! Into what an abyss you have fallen! Satan has succeeded in extending everywhere his reign of darkness and of death, and he rules as an assured victor. But you are now beginning to live through that which I have foretold to you at Fatima, for the last years of this century of yours, and of which is still guarded under the veil of secrecy. These are my times. After the painful years of Satan's triumph, the years of the triumph of my Immaculate Heart are now beginning. June 11, 1988, Feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. On the feast of my Immaculate Heart of this Marian year, consecrated to me, beloved sons, I am calling all of you to enter into the heavenly garden, which I have built for you during these painful and bloody moments of the purification. The hour of the great apostasy has come. What has been foretold in Holy Scripture, in the second letter of St. Paul to the Thessalonians, is now on the point of coming to pass. Satan, my adversary, which snares and by means of his subtle seduction has succeeded in spreading errors everywhere, under the form of new and more updated interpretations of the truth, and he has led many to choose with full knowledge, and to live in sin, in the deceiving conviction that this is no longer an evil, and even that it has a value and a good. The times of general confusion and of the greatest agitation of spirits has come. Confusion has entered into the souls and the lives of many of my children. This great apostasy is spreading more and more, even through the interior of the Catholic Church. Errors are being taught and spread about, while the fundamental truths of the faith, which the authentic magisterium of the Church has always taught and energetically defended against any heretical deviation whatsoever, are being denied with impunity. The episcopates are maintaining a strained silence and no longer reacting. When my Pope speaks with courage and reaffirms with force the truths of the Catholic faith, he is no longer listened to, and is even publicly criticized and derided. There is a subtle and diabolical tactic, woven in secrecy by masonry, which is used today against the Holy Father, in order to bring ridicule upon his person and his work, and to neutralize his magisterium. Those children of mine, who often unknowingly allow themselves to be carried along by this wave of error and of evil are victims of the great apostasy. Many bishops, priests, religious, and faithful are victims of the great apostasy. In these times in the Catholic Church, there will remain a little remnant who will be faithful to Christ, to the gospel, and to its entire truth. The little remnant will form a little flock, all guarded in the depths of my Immaculate Heart. This little flock will be made up of those bishops, priests, religious, and faithful, who will remain strongly united to the Pope, all gathered together in the cenacle of my Immaculate Heart, in an act of unceasing prayer, of continual immolation, of total offering to prepare the painful way for the second and glorious coming of my Son Jesus. On this feast of mine in this Marian year, I address to all those who wish to become part of the little flock the motherly invitation to consecrate themselves to my heart, to live in intimacy of life with me, to become my courageous apostles in these last times, because the moment when my Immaculate Heart must be glorified, before all the Church and before all humanity has fallen. May 14th, 1989. The huge red dragon is atheistic communism, which has spread everywhere the error of the denial and of the obstinate rejection of God. The huge red dragon is Marxist atheism, which appears with 10 horns, namely with the power of its means of communication, in order to lead humanity to disobey the 10 commandments of God, and with 7 heads, upon each of which there is a crown, signs of authority and loyalty. The crowned heads indicate the nations in which atheistic communism is established and rules with the force of its ideological, political, and military power. The hugeness of the dragon clearly manifests the vastness of the territory occupied by the uncontested reign of atheistic communism. Its color is red because it uses wars and blood as instruments of its numerous conquests. The huge red dragon has succeeded during these years in conquering humanity with the era of theoretical and practical atheism, which has now seduced all the nations of the earth. It has thus succeeded in building up for itself a new civilization without God, materialistic, egotistic, hedonistic, arid, and cold, which carries within itself the seeds of corruption and of death. The huge red dragon has the diabolical task of taking all humanity away from the dominion of God, from the glorification of the most holy Trinity, from the full actualization of the plan of the Father, who, by means of the Son, has created it for his glory. This is the locution in Milan, June 3rd, 1989. The beast like a leopard. Beloved sons, today you are gathered in the cenacles of prayer to celebrate the feast of the Immaculate Heart of your Heavenly Mother. From every part of the world, I have called you to consecrate yourselves to my Immaculate Heart, and you have responded with filial love and generosity. I have now formed myself my army, with those children who have accepted my request and have listened to my voice. The time has come when my Immaculate Heart must be glorified by the Church and by all humanity, because in these times of the apostasy, of the purification, of the great tribulation, my Immaculate Heart is the only refuge and the way which leads to you, to the God of salvation, of peace. Above all, my Immaculate Heart becomes today the sign of my true victory in the great struggle which is being fought out against the followers of the huge red dragon and the followers of the woman clothed with the sun. In this terrible struggle, there comes up from the sea, to the aid of the dragon, a beast like a leopard. If the red dragon is Marxist atheism, the black beast is free masonry. The dragon manifests himself in the force of his power. The black beast, on the other hand, acts in the shadow, keeps out of sight, and hides himself in such a way as to enter in everywhere. He has the claws of a bear and the mouth of a lion, because he works everywhere with cunning and with means of social communication, that is to say, through propaganda. The 7 heads indicate the various Masonic lodges, which act everywhere in a subtle and dangerous way. This black beast has 10 horns, and on the horns 10 crowns, which are signs of dominion and royalty. Masonry rules and governs throughout the whole world, by means of the 10 horns. The horn in the biblical world has always been an instrument of amplification and a way of making one's voice better heard, a strong means of communication. For this reason, God communicated his will to his people by means of 10 horns, which made his law known, the 10 Commandments. The one who accepts them and observes them walks in life along the road of the divine will, of joy and of peace. The one who does the will of the Father accepts the word of his Son and shares in the redemption accomplished by him. Jesus gives to souls the very divine life through grace that he won for us through his sacrifice carried on Calvary. The grace of the redemption is communicated by means of the 7 sacraments. With grace there becomes implanted in the soul the seeds of supernatural life, which are the virtues. Among these the most important are the three theological and 4 cardinal virtues: faith, hope, charity, prudence, fortitude, justice, and temperance. And the divine Son of the 7 gifts of the Holy Ghost, these virtues germinate, grow, become more and more developed, and thus lead to the souls along the luminous way of love and of sanctity. The task of the black beast, namely of Masonry, is that of fighting in a subtle way, but tenaciously, to obstruct souls from the traveling along this way, pointed out by the Father and the Son, and lighted up by the gifts of the Spirit. In fact, if the Red Dragon worked to bring all humanity to do without God, to the denial of God, and therefore spread the error of atheism, the aim of Masonry is not to deny God, but to blaspheme him. The beast opens his mouth to utter blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his dwelling place, and against all those who dwell in heaven. The great blasphemy is that of denying the worship due to God alone, by giving it to creatures and to Satan himself. This is why in these times, behind the perverse action of Freemasonry, there are being spread everywhere black masses and the satanic cult. Moreover, Masonry acts by every means to prevent souls from being saved, and thus it endeavors to bring to nothing the redemption accomplished by Christ. If the Lord has communicated his law with the 10 Commandments, Freemasonry spreads everywhere through the power of its 10 horns, a law which is completely opposed to that of God. To the commandments of the Lord, you shall not have any other gods but me. Freemasonry builds other false idols, before which many today prostrate themselves in adoration. To the commandment, you shall not take the name of God in vain, it sets itself up in opposition by blaspheming God and his Christ in many subtle and diabolical ways, even to reducing his name indecorously to the level of a brand name, of an object of sale, and of producing sacrilegious films concerning his life and his divine person. To the commandment, remember to keep the Sabbath days, it transforms the Sunday into a weekend, into a day of sports, of competitions, and of entertainments. To the commandment, honor your father and your mother, it opposes a new model of family based on cohabitation, even between homosexuals. To the commandment, you shall not commit impure acts, it justifies, exalts, and propagates every form of impurity, even to the justification of acts against nature. To the commandment, you shall not kill, it has succeeded in making abortion legal everywhere, in making euthanasia acceptable, and in causing respect due to the value of human life all but disappear. To the commandment, you shall not steal, it works to the end that theft, violence, kidnapping, and robbery spread more and more. To the commandment, you shall not bear false witness, it acts in such a way that the law of deceit, lying, and duplicity becomes more and more propagated. To the commandment, "You shall not covet the goods and wife of another," it works to corrupt in the depths of the conscience, betraying the mind and the heart of men. In this way, souls become driven along the perverse and wicked road of disobedience to the laws of the Lord, become submerged in sin, and are thus prevented from receiving the gift of grace and of the life of God. To the 7 theological and cardinal virtues, which are the fruit of living in the grace of God, Freemasonry counters with the diffusion of the 7 capital vices, which are the fruit of living habitually in the state of sin. To faith it opposes pride, to hope, lust, to charity, avarice, to prudence, anger, to fortitude, sloth, to justice, envy, to temperance, gluttony. Whoever becomes a victim of the 7 capital vices is gradually led to take away the worship that is due to God alone, in order to give it to false divinities, who are the very personification of all these vices. And in this consists the greatest and most horrible blasphemy. This is why on every head of the beast there is written a blasphemous name. Each Masonic lodge has the task of making a different divinity adorn. The first head bears the blasphemous name of pride, which opposes itself to the virtue of faith, and leads one to offer worship to the God of reason and haughtiness, of technological progress. The second head bears the blasphemous name of lust, which opposes itself to the virtue of hope, and bring one to offer worship to the God of sexuality and of impurity. The third head bears the blasphemous name of avarice, which opposes itself to the virtue of charity, and spreads everywhere the worship of the god of money. The fourth head bears the blasphemous name of anger, which opposes itself to the virtue of prudence, and leads one to offer worship to the god of discord and division. The fifth head bears the blasphemous name of sloth, which opposes itself to the virtue of fortitude, and disseminates the worship of the idol of fear, of public opinion, and of exploitation. The sixth head bears the blasphemous name of envy, which opposes itself to the virtue of justice, and leads one to offer worship to the idol of violence and of war. The seventh head bears the blasphemous name of gluttony, which opposes itself to the virtue of temperance, and leads one to offer worship to the so highly exalted idol of hedonism, of materialism, and of pleasure. The task of Masonic lodges is that of working today with great astuteness to bring humanity everywhere to disdain the holy law of God, to work in open opposition to the 10 Commandments, and take away the worship due to God alone, in order to offer it to certain false idols, which become extolled and adored by an ever-increasing number of people, like reason, the flesh, money, discord, domination, violence, and pleasure. Thus souls are precipitated into the dark slavery of evil, of vice, and of sin, and at the moment of death and of the judgment of God, into the pool of eternal fire, which is hell. Now you understand how, in these times, against the terrible insidious attack of the black beast, namely of Masonry, my Immaculate Heart becomes your refuge, and the sure road which brings you to God. In my Immaculate Heart there is delineated the tactic made use of by your Heavenly Mother to fight back against and to defeat the subtle plot made use of by the black beast. For this reason, I am training all my children to observe the 10 Commandments of God, to live the gospel to the letter, to make frequent use of the sacraments, especially those of penance and Eucharistic communion, as necessary helps in order to remain in the grace of God, to practice the virtues vigorously, to walk always along the path of goodness, of love, of impurity, and of holiness. Thus I am making use of you my little children, who have consecrated yourselves to me, to unmask all these subtle snares which the black beast sets for you, and to make futile, in the end, the great attack which Masonry has launched against Christ and his church. And in the end, especially in his greatest defeat, there will appear in all its splendor the triumph of my Immaculate Heart in the world. The Beast Like a Lamb, June 13th, 1989. Beloved sons, today you are calling to mind my second apparitions which took place in the humble Cova de Iria in Fatima on June 13th, 1917. Even as then I foretold to you that which you are living through in these times, I announced to you the great struggle between me, the woman clothed with the sun, and the huge red dragon, which has brought humanity to live without God. I also foretold to you the subtle and dark work carried out by Freemasonry, with the purpose of separating you from the observance of the law of God, and thus making you victims of sins and vices. Above all, as a mother, I have wanted to warn you of the grave dangers which threaten the Church today, because of the many diabolical attacks which are being carried out against her to destroy her. The black beast like a leopard indicates Freemasonry. The beast with the two horns, like a lamb, indicates Freemasonry infiltrated into the interior of the Church, that is to say, ecclesiastical Masonry, which has spread especially among the members of the hierarchy. This Masonic infiltration in the interior of the Church was already foretold to you by me at Fatima, when I announced to you that Satan would enter in even to the summit of the Church. If the task of Masonry is to lead souls to perdition, bringing them to the worship of false divinities, the task of ecclesiastical Masonry, on the other hand, is that of destroying Christ and of his Church, building a new idol, namely, a false Christ and a false Church. Jesus is the truth, because it is he, the living Word, who is the font and seal of all divine revelation. And so, ecclesiastical Masonry works to obscure his divine word by means of natural and rational interpretations, and, in the attempt to make it more understandable and acceptable, empties it of all its supernatural content. Thus, errors are spread in every part of the Catholic Church itself. Because of the spread of these errors, many are moving away today from the true faith, bringing to fulfillment the prophecy which was given to you by me at Fatima. Quote, "The times will come when many will lose the true faith." End of quote. The loss of the faith is apostasy. Ecclesiastical Masonry works in a subtle and diabolical way to lead all into apostasy. Jesus is the life because he gives grace. The aim of ecclesiastical Masonry is that of justifying sin, of presenting it no longer as an evil, but as something good and of value. Thus one is advised to do this as a way of satisfying the exigencies of one's own nature, destroying the root from which repentance could be born, and is told that it is no longer necessary to confess it. The pernicious fruit of this accursed cancer, which has spread throughout the whole Church, is the disappearance everywhere of individual confession. Souls are led to live in sin, rejecting the gift of life which Jesus has offered. Jesus is the way which leads to the Father by means of the gospel. Ecclesiastical Masonry favors those forms of exegesis which give it to a rationalistic and natural interpretation by means of the application of the various literary genres, in which a way that it becomes torn to pieces in all its parts. In the end, when it arrives at denying the historical reality of miracles and of the resurrection, and places in doubt the very divinity of Jesus in his salvific mission. Ecclesiastical Masonry seeks to destroy this reality through false ecumenism, which leads to the acceptance of all Christian churches, asserting that each of them has some part of the truth. It develops the plan of founding a universal ecumenical church, formed up by the fusion of all the Christian confessions, among which the Catholic Church. The Church is the life because it gives grace, and it alone possesses the efficacious means of grace, which are the 7 sacraments. Especially it is life because to it alone is given the power to beget the Eucharist, by means of the hierarchical and ministerial priesthood. In the Eucharist, Jesus Christ is truly present with his glorified body in his divinity, and so ecclesiastical masonry, in many and subtle ways, seeks to attack the ecclesial devotion towards the sacrament of the Eucharist. It gives value only to the meal aspect, tends to minimize its sacrificial value, seeks to deny the real and personal presence of Jesus and the consecrated host. In this way, there are gradually suppressed all the external signs which are indicative of faith in the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, such as genuflections, hours of public adoration, and the holy customs of surrounding the tabernacle with lights and flowers. Ecclesiastical masonry seeks to destroy the foundation of the unity of the Church through a subtle and insidious attack on the Pope. It weaves plots of dissensions and of contestations against the Pope. It supports and rewards those who vilify and disobey him. It disseminates the criticisms and the contentions of bishops and theologians. In this way, the very foundation of its unity is demolished, and thus the Church becomes more and more torn and divided. Thus, to the dark force which ecclesiastical masonry is today, exercising to destroy Christ and his Church. June 17, 1989. Beloved sons, you now understand the plan of your Heavenly Mother, the woman clothed with the sun, who with her army is engaged in the great struggle against all the forces of evil, in order to attain her great victory and the great glorification of the Most Holy Trinity. Join me in battle, little children, against the devil, who seeks to lead all humanity against God. Join me in battle, little children, against the black beast, masonry, which seeks to lead souls to perdition. Join me in battle, little children, against the beast like a lamb, masonry, infiltrated into the interior of ecclesial life in order to destroy Christ and his Church. To attain this end, it seeks to build a new idol, namely, a false Christ and a false Church. Ecclesiastical masonry receives orders and powers from the various Masonic lodges and works to lead everyone secretly to become part of these secret sects. Thus, it stimulates the ambitious with the prospect of easy careers. It heaps up with goods those who are starved for money. It assists its members to exceed others and to occupy the most important positions, while it sets aside, in a subtle but decisive way, all those who refuse to take part in its designs. Indeed, the beast like a lamb exercises all its power from the first beast in its presence, and it forces the earth and all its inhabitants to adore the first beast. May 13th, 1990 at Fatima. I came down from heaven 73 years ago in this Gobbi area to point out for you the path you should tread in the course of this difficult century of yours. The very painful event which followed have, through their occurrence, given complete fulfillment to the words of my prophecy. Humanity has not accepted my motherly request to return to the Lord along the road of conversion of heart and of life, of prayer and of penance. Thus it has known the terrible years of the Second World War, which brought about tens of millions of deaths and a vast destruction of populaces and of nations. Russia has not been consecrated to me by the Pope, together with all the bishops, and thus she has not received the grace of conversion, and has spread her errors throughout all parts of the world, provoking wars, violence, bloody revolutions, and persecutions of the Church and of the Holy Father. Satan has been the uncontested dominator of the events of this century of yours, bringing all humanity to the rejection of God and of his law of love, spreading far and wide division and hatred, immorality and wickedness, and legitimating everywhere divorce, abortion, obscenity, homosexuality, and recourse to any and all means of obstructing life. Now you are becoming the last decade of this century of yours. I am coming down from heaven, so that the final secrets may be revealed to you, and that I may be able thus to prepare you for what, as of now, you must live through, for the purification of the earth. My third secret, which I revealed here to 3 little children, to whom I appeared, and which up to the present has not yet been revealed to you, will be made manifest to all by the very occurrences of events. The Church will know the hour of its greatest apostasy. The man of iniquity will penetrate into its interior and will sit in the very temple of God, while the little remnant, which will remain faithful, will be subject to the greatest trials and persecutions. Humanity will live through the moment of its great chastisement, and thus will be made ready to receive the Lord Jesus, who will return to you in glory. For this reason, especially today, I am coming down again from heaven, through my numerous apparitions, through the messages which I give, and through this extraordinary work of my merry movement of priests, to prepare you to live through the events which are even now in the process of being fulfilled, in order to lead you by the hand to walk along the most difficult and painful segment of this your second advent, and to prepare the minds and the hearts of all to receive Jesus at the closely approaching moment. May 13th, 1993. By a day-long cenacle at this venerated shrine, you, the priests and faithful of my movement in the region of Lombardy, are today observing the anniversary of my first apparition, which took place at Fatima in the poor Cova d'Iria. You are still in the period described by me in my apparition. Above all, you are in the heart of my message. The struggle between the woman clothed in the sun and the red dragon has, during these years, reached its highest peak. Satan has set up his kingdom in the world. He is now ruling over you as a sure victor. The powers which are directed and arranging human events according to their perverse plans are the dark and diabolical powers of evil. They have succeeded in bringing all humanity to live without God. They have spread everywhere the era of theoretical and practical atheism. They have built the new idols before which humanity is bowing down adoration, pleasure, money, pride, impurity, mastery over others, and impiety. Thus, in these years of yours, violence is spreading more and more. Egoism has made the hearts of men hard and insensitive. Hatred has blazed up like a scorching fire. Wars have multiplied in every part of the world, and you are now living in the danger of a new terrible world war, which will bring destruction to peoples and nations, a war from which no one will emerge victorious. Satan has succeeded in entering into the church, the new Israel of God. He has entered there with the smoke of error and sin, of the loss of faith and apostasy, of compromise with the world and the search for pleasure. During these years he has succeeded in leading astray bishops and priests, religious and faithful. The forces of masonry have entered into the church in a subtle and hidden way, and have set up their stronghold in the very place where the vicar of my son Jesus lives and works. You are living the bloody years of the battle, because the great trial has now arrived for all. There is now taking place that which is contained in the third part of my message, which has not been revealed to you, but which has now become evident from the events themselves through which you are now living. To prepare you for them, I have caused my merry movement of priests to spring up in every part of the world, and thus I have chosen this littlest and poorest child of mine, and have brought him everywhere, as an instrument of my motherly plan of salvation and mercy. By means of him I have called you from all sides to consecrate yourselves to my Immaculate Heart, to enter, each and all, into the safe refuge which your Heavenly Mother has prepared for you, to multiply the cenicles of prayer as lightning rods which protect you from the fire of chastisement. How many of you have responded to my call with filial love and with great generosity? My plan is now on the point of being realized, and the task which I have entrusted to this little son of mine is about to be completed. And so today I'm looking upon you with the special satisfaction of a mother who is being consoled and exalted by you. I urge you to live without fear, but rather with great confidence and trust, these bloody years of the battle. From the chalice of sufferings never experienced until now, there will come forth the divine Son of a new era, of a humanity heretofore unknown, of grace and holiness, of love and justice, of joy and peace. This is a vision that Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich received when she was alive. I saw St. Peter's, a great crowd of men was trying to pull it down, while others constantly built it up again. Lines connected these men one with another, and with others throughout the whole world. I was amazed at their perfect understanding. The demolishers, mostly apostates, and members of different sects, broke off whole pieces and worked according to rules and instructions. They wore white aprons, bound with blue ribbon. In them were pockets, and they had trowels stuck in their belts. The costumes of others were various. There were among the demolishers distinguished men wearing uniforms and crosses. They did not work themselves, but they marked out on the wall with a trowel where and how it should be torn down. To my horror, I saw among them Catholic priests. Whenever the workmen did not know how to go on, they went to a certain one in their party. He had a large book, which seemed to contain the whole plan of the building and the way to destroy it. They marked out exactly, with a trowel, the parts to be attacked, and they soon came down. They worked quietly and confidently, but slyly, furtively, and warily. I saw the Pope praying, surrounded by false friends, who often did the very opposite to what he had ordered.